Hey Crafty Friends, this is Jen from Katahdin Crafts and welcome to the Valentine's Day YouTube hop. Today's hop was coordinated by the talented Katy from Hook, Line, and Inker, and there are 20 creators along the hop. If you go and watch all of our videos and comment, you will be entered into a grand prize giveaway. So that is a win-win situation. You get lots of Valentine's Day inspiration and you can win a prize. Yay! Happy Valentine's Day. I made two different cards for the hop today using Tailored Expressions stamps and dies, a stencil and a stamp from Honeybee, and some pretty Catherine Pooler inks. The main focus of today's cards are Tailored Expressions Tag Team, the dies, and then the coordinating Tag Team Valentine that just came out recently in one of their latest releases. The first thing I did to start my card today was cut out all my tags, and in order to do this, I cut a piece of cardstock in half to 5.5 by 8.5, and this allows me to cut out 12 different tags from the same piece of paper. I kept my dies together for the first initial cutting of all the tags. You can see I just pop them out and then I slide it over and do another 3. And I just repeat that 4 times. So a half a piece of paper gives me 12 different tags to work with. All right, and now I'm going to separate them so I can make a template. I'm just grabbing my wire snips. First, I just use my hands and bend them back and forth, and then I'm just snipping off the little excess on the edge. And then I'm going to make a template out of just a piece of scrap paper that I had laying around. And just run that through the die machine, and now I have a place that I can put back all my dies so I can stamp on them. I used a little bit of repositional glue underneath just to hold them down a little secure. And now I'm going to use the tags, the Valentine Tag Team add-on, and go ahead and stamp. I'm just lining that up. They do go over a little bit, which is nice, so then you can get that whole surface covered. And they kept on sticking to my fingers, so I just used a piercing tool to help me. And now they're new to me stamps, so I am rubbing on them a little bit, and it helps take some of that tacky off so the ink will adhere a little bit nicer. Now I'm using my Catherine Pooler inks, like I said earlier, and this is in Rockin' Red, and these are fabulous. They are bright, bold, and super juicy, so they're really easy to work with. This is Pucker Up, my next color. I cleaned off my stamps in between, and I'm just going to do 3 at a time with the same color each time. Catherine Pooler inks are relatively new to me, so I'm still learning. This is Sangria. I'm still learning all the different fantastic things that they can do. You can watercolor with them. So they react to water. You can spritz them like you can with your Distress Oxide inks. They're pretty cool. This is one of their new colors from the 8 that just came out, Drive-In. And after I did all 12 on the stamping on the edges, now it's time to fill in the middles with some of those pretty sentiments. So I'm just randomly picking what I thought was cute. And there are some sub-sentiments as well. So like the I love you, I did a little bit higher so I can add a sub-sentiment after. And I'm going to use the same color scheme, the same Catherine Pooler inks that I used before, but I'm just going to change it up. So if I use Drive-In, now I'm going to use the other 3. So you can see Sangria, Rockin' Red, and what was my 4th one? Oh, fitting for the occasion, it was called Pucker Up. In there, I'm adding that sub-sentiment now. And now there's also a lot of little cute arrows and hearts and XOs in the stamp set. So I'm just going to add in a couple of those to embellish my tags. Scooting that around, and then again, I'm going to stay with that same 4 color scheme. Just change it up. And I'm not worried about perfection at all on these tags. I wanted them to have like almost like a rustic feel to them. And I'm just adding them each time. You can just add them right to that template in the same space with that same repositional glue. They can just pop in and out, and that holds it down snugly so you can stamp. And I did stamp each and every one of them twice in my Misty. That is why I love the Misty. It helps with all those stamping misfortunes. For the little embellishments, I did use a block though, in the same colors. Well, this actually is Be Mine. I think I did bring that into it. Again, fitting for the occasion. And just randomly put them on just to decorate the tags up and jazz them up a little bit. It was fun to do, just kind of randomized and not having to worry about being perfect. That's always makes for a nice, easy, fun project. And inking it up again, and just gonna stamp. I stamped the same sentiments on these 3 tags as I did the last ones. So you could really mass produce these tags, and if you were doing a project at school, or for your child's friends, whatever, you can go ahead and you can mass produce these and add them to candy bars or whatever, just for that nice little extra added touch. You can, give them to your loved ones. I'm going to send some cards out to my nieces. So that's my plan. And again, I'm just stamping up this last group. And those exos, I wanted that to carry throughout the whole tag, so I just added it again to the end, cleaned off the other stamps, added a sub-sentiment to Your Sweet, and stamped that up again. Oh, I am bringing in a couple of other colors. This one was Flirty Fuchsia. I like the names that they choose, and I just kept with that same Valentine's Day theme. The colors, I like these colors, so it's very fitting for me. Now I grabbed out my eyelets. I dug deep and grabbed these out. I have used them actually a couple times in this last year, which is fun, and my family super appreciated this, me banging them all in. But I just chose some pink ones and some gold and some copper, and went ahead and added eyelets to each of the tags. And it just adds that little bit more of a decorative element. And now I'm digging into all my twine stash and picking again some Valentine Day colors. I went with the typical, the drive-in was a little bit deeper, blue or purple, whichever way you see that. But I went with the pinks and the reds because, again, those are definitely my favorite colors. Add in purple and I'm in heaven. And again, I just picked out the twine that will match that. I ended up not using the jute twine. I wanted to go with the colors, the stripes. I like that. So I'm adding that to all 12 tags. And I am just folding the twine in half and then twisting the looped end and then pulling it out and tucking in those 2 loose ends to form a little bit of a knot. And that's how I did all of them. The same process I'm going to show you again. And some people go ahead and put the 2 ends through. I like to do the end that's looped. And I just twist it and then put it back, or put it through and then untwist it and tuck that other end back in. And that just secures it to the tag. Next, I'm going to start working on the background, and here I'm pulling out a Honeybee Stamps Whimsical Hearts stencil. I sprayed the back with pixie spray and let that set up for about a minute, and I'm just going to press it down onto my card panel. And I have these new brushes, and you can see they're nice and soft, and I wanted to check them out. So I'm using a little Spun Sugar Distressed Oxide ink. And I'm using a very light hand, and I'm going to start at the top, and then I'm going to pull in some milled Lavender Distress Oxide ink for the bottom, and I'm going to try to do a nice little gradient between the two, and maybe make it a little bit heavier along the edges and in the corners just for an aesthetic look to pull you kind of into the middle. And you can see I'm just going to go back and forth, and I'm going to blend that a little bit in the middle on top of each other. And I do like these brushes. They worked really well for this. My dilemma with these, I'm not sure how everybody else feels, but my dilemma with these is I don't know how I feel about using it for the same color family. And there is my stenciled background. It makes me nervous going from one purple to the next purple, so I don't know how I'm feeling about that yet. And so now I'm just going to decide which tags work best for this card. I had my husband in mind when I was thinking of this one, so the sayings I'm using will be something that I would say to him or I could say to him rather than my niece or a friend. So they're such nice sayings. I love you, you make my heart happy. That's just sweet. So I decided I wanted to mat this, so I'm going to take my card panel and trim it down to 4 by 5 1/4. And that will give me a nice 1/8 of an inch mat all around my card. And that just makes that pop a little bit more. And I decided on my tags. And now I thought that the card still needed a little bit of something. So I went with Tailored Expressions on the block Love Shadow. That's a die cut that they just came out with recently. And I liked it. I decided that I wanted it to be a shadowed effect, so I cut 2 of them. I did one in like a sparkly cardstock, a white cardstock, and then I had done the white, or I'm sorry, a red, but I didn't like that. It didn't match well enough. It was just a piece of scrap cardstock that I had, and the reds didn't match, so I didn't like the way that worked. So I decided that I really wanted to coordinate this really well with my card. So there's a technique that you can also do with the Catherine Pooler inks where you put the ink directly onto the paper. So I'm going to take a card panel that I already had prepared and I'm just going to cut that in half. I always generally have my card panels cut and ready to go. So I'm just going to cut that in half and I'm going to take the pucker up and I'm just going to simply slide it right across the paper. That's it. And now I have a coordinating cardstock exactly that fits my card. So I just have to let that dry. So I'm going to clean up my little space on my mat and I'm going to let that dry, and you can see that that's going to match my tags perfectly. So after it dried, which didn't take that long, I went ahead and cut that love out. And now I wanted something to be in that space of the O. I didn't think that I wanted the hearts to be popped through. So I played around with the 3 different colors that I had and I ultimately decided on the white cardstock. And so I'm just going to pop that back in when I start gluing my card. You can see that I'm just playing with it and I didn't like that the way it looked. So this was just aesthetics, personal aesthetics. Now it's time to start putting our whole card together. So I'm using a little bit of liquid glue for the bottom, or maybe a lot of liquid glue. I like the wiggle room that liquid glue allows me because I don't always get it on there straight right away. And now I wanted these to have some dimension, so I popped them up with some foam dots or foam squares. I'm going to take that off and then start adhering those down. And you can see how I don't always get things perfect at first. So I had to go back and kind of play with those and lift them and get them back on there. I'm going to put that love down with more liquid adhesive. I have an array of different liquid adhesives in my craft room because I definitely like to use those. I like the wiggle room for sure. And I'm just going to put that on top. And that just gives it a slight shadow effect. I liked it. A little bit more pop to it. And see, I'm just using an old school tool that I've had in my possession for many, many years. And it's just a thin little tool that can get underneath those glue dots and just lift them. And so I can move that up just slightly. And there we go. I'm just going to trim off a little bit of the excess of that twine. Just make it a little bit shorter, and card number 1 is complete. Well, almost complete. We're going to put that base on there first. And it's just an A2 size, so my base is 5.5 by 8.5 scored at the 4 1/4, and that fits my card panel perfectly. So now we are officially done with card number 1. And moving on to card number 2, I'm also using a stamp from Honeybee called S.W.A.K. And I should probably be ashamed that I actually had to look this up to see what it meant. And I knew I had that buried somewhere in my brain, but I could not come up with it. I'm going to allow a little time for you all to realize what it says or what it means. And then you could say, Jen, what were you thinking? But okay, so S.W.A.K, sealed with a kiss. Yeah, see, yeah, no, makes sense. Oops. All right, so again, I just wanted some light background colors going on, so I used those same spun sugar and the milled lavender, and I did some light stamping. I did one stamp fully, and then I used the secondary stamping for another, kind of all the way down the card, and just mixed and matched it up like that, and put those giant lips all over. I thought that it's kind of neat. They're like life-size lips. And all the details, I mean, it's actually a really cool stamp. And again, I decided to do the same thing, except that I'm going down a little bit shorter on this. I'm going down a little bit smaller so I can triple matte this one. So this panel I'm taking down to 5 by 3 3/4. And then I'm going to take this panel down to my 4 and 5 1/4. And then that will give us a triple matte when we go ahead. And now I am stamping a couple of smaller stamps in between the lips, the XOXO that's in the stamp set, the tag stamp set. And the first one, yep, it is upside down. Oh well. So I flip that over and do the rest of them the right side up. And I'm using the spun sugar for all the XOs. And then I'm going to use the milled lavender for a few little hearts in between there. Just gives a little bit more interest to that background that we're creating. But again, very light and subtle. That is what I wanted. So switching that up to the heart, and then we're just going to do some of the milled lavender and put a few hearts on there as well. And now it's time to add this panel to the red mat, and then decide which tags and placement of the tags again. And at this point, I still wasn't sure. You can see that's my fingers. That's me thinking when I move my fingers like that. I wasn't sure what else I wanted to add to this, if I wanted to put the love down again. But then I decided, no, I think that if I centered those tags, that was enough for this card with the lips. I didn't want to cover up all those pretty lipstick lips in the back. I thought that those were cool. Maybe I should call them smooches. I didn't want to cover up all the smooches. So I'm just adding this to my card base again, and you can see how now that is triple matted. I like that. I like the way it pops, and those colors look nice together. And so now we have 2 completed Valentine Day cards with some pretty cute little tags on there. Thank you so much for visiting with me today. I hope that you're enjoying this Valentine's Day hop. Make sure you comment along the hop that spreads some of that Valentine's Day love to us. And if you haven't already subscribed to some of the channels along the hop, we would all appreciate your support. And I have Diva Lens 145 linked below. She is next on the hop stop for you. And I'm also linking Katy from Hook, Line, and Anchor below, so you can make sure that you give her a shout out and some love for organizing this whole hop for everybody. And she is also at the beginning of the hop, so if you found me in the middle, you can start over and find her at the beginning. Thank you so much, everybody. Have a happy Valentine's Day. Bye-bye.